Okay, now no one's gonna know that this is not a real thing. Thanks for fixing that. All right, here we are. This is exciting here.
Oh yeah.
I think there may be someone outside that door right there. Believe it or not.
Oh, really? I'm gonna check that out.
Wow, look at that. It's you two seem so familiar with each other. Have you met before?
I feel like we must have met before somewhere.
Yeah, we met. Did you? I think we went to the. I think you go to the same college. Yeah. So, I got to join you.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
If you don't fake it, then you're cool.
All right, we're recording now.
I mean, I grew up in the city, so it's like, I mean, like, I check everybody.
That's wise. I mean, especially artists. They're not trustworthy people. Liars by profession.
Yeah, liars by profession.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna take a minute to set up my palette, but that might be fun to watch on camera. So just talk about whatever. You were asking me about the painting behind me.
Yeah.
And you compared it to who?
Jean DeVille.
Jean DeVille. I forget, or I didn't quite hear where or what era that.
I think it's like 18th or 19th century.
Yeah.
I think 19th because it kind of has that the 1800s feel to it. You know, this stuff is very religious, but he makes sure like everything looks beautiful.
Okay.
You know, like ironically, like death metal bands in the 90s, you know, mainly one, Morbid Angel, used his work, and it was kind of like his work is called Satan's Shredders.
Satan's Shredders?
Satan's Shredders.
Shredders.
Yeah.
So he's a lighthearted guy.
I have no idea who he is as a person. I mean, like, if you look at all of his work, it just seems like, oh man, this looks like, if you look at his work, he just seems like he's very psychedelic. He just tries to make everything look beautiful. Like, I mean, like,
every detail, like, okay, yeah.
it's insane. He's very detailed. Like, he's very, like, formal, like, but it's like he doesn't put it in like a formal setting where it's like a lot of people that did realistic, you know, they had like the setting was realistic, you know, it was like the lighting was, the colors, but this guy pretty much he approaches it like it's like a precursor to like cartoon.
Okay.
Anyway.
I'm really curious to see what this art looks like. I'll bring it up somewhere. It's on an iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got an iPad over there. Can you see it? Is it on the desk or in that tower full of stuff?
Oh, I see.
Cool.
Yeah, that's I use that to make a lot of sketches.
Oh yeah, this thing is a lifesaver.
Yeah. Then sometimes I use the iPad. Well, there are times I use the iPad for wall pieces.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but
yeah, you mentioned that you do digital art.
yeah, but recently I started getting I use like a real graphic tablet. You know, there's some that aren't $3,000 by Wacom.
Yeah, I know what you mean. How about you, Cass? Do you ever like what you Cass?
Yeah, that's fine. No, I have never like gotten into digital art. I would be curious about it, but I wouldn't say like I have much like artistic like knowledge at all. I don't know. I feel like only
historically, or or
I'm in both, I guess. Like, most of my studies, like, I'm like psychology major.
yeah?
So I don't know a lot technically, but I think that's part of like the fun for me is kind of like not knowing how to do anything and just figuring it out as I go.
What started you on that path?
I suppose just like I think it's just the desire to like jump into as many like projects as I can, no matter like how underprepared I am for being a part of it.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. I joined my friends and
Speak of the devil. Here I am, like with a palette that looks like it's full of paint, it's totally old and just not actually completely started here. Just on camera, it's making chaos here. Okay, so sorry, I'm interrupting.
Oh no, you're so bad.
Yeah, here's what I'm talking about.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. What? It's crazy. Yeah. If you can see the camera. It's John DeVille. John DeVille, 1895. Okay, so that makes sense. The treasures of Satan. Symbolist painter. It's funny, I look at Ferdinand Hodler and I'm thinking of him and I'm thinking that he's such a peaceful looking painter and during the symbolist time, and yeah, that's some dark stuff right there.
Yeah, I was looking at more of his work. And the thing is, I think, have you ever seen Frank Franzetta's?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like reminiscent of Frank Franzetta in like 70s, like, you know, like how the colors were in the 70s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
It is similar. I can see how he'd be influenced by that, of course, definitely. He's fantasy figures and stuff.
Yeah.
He did a lot of the fantasy novel covers. I remember my brothers reading
Like Conan and,
yeah.
you know, like, he did I don't know if he directly did it, but it was like for a video game. One of his last ones is called Brutal Legend.
Yeah.
It's like a game of Jack Black. And it's all metalheads, you know, like you know, different genres are different factions, and I'm like, this is pretty much a metaphor of how the internet is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like oh, don't hang with us, man. We're the real metalheads. And then it's like you got all that. No, we're the golf metalheads. We don't hang around you all.
Sure. Yeah. Factions. People fancy. New factions.
Yeah, factions of culture. I was at a punk show.
I think. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, I was at a punk show Friday. You ever heard of the place Archer Ball?
No.
Yeah. It's in Bridgeport. But I mean, like, the people over there, you know, there were some guys I was talking to where it was kind of like, they get really opinionated over, like, vibrations of sound. And I'm just like, dude, hell.
So these super technical people.
Like, I mean, like, if you don't like it, you don't have to really express how much you despise it. You know, it's like
It's the right thing to avoid.
I
A
mean,
lot of times if you're being critical about anything.
yeah, I mean, like,
You have an opinion about anything. How do you not tear down a thing just because you don't have a preference for it?
yeah,
That's tough.
you know,
You have to be compassionate while you're criticizing something also. That's difficult to do.
I mean, like, it was kind of a shock because I was working with people that, like, some bands that are, like, heavy, but,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they were, like, some of those bands are still heavy and extreme, but it was like, oh, let's just make it more melodic. And then you meet some people where it's like, I don't like that. Where it's like, you get really, I'm going to use some terminology, triggered over like them saying, hey, let's just make this riff sound a bit more melodic.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I mean, it still pisses off 90% of our elders. But it's like, it's not ridiculous. And I love ridiculous shit. I love it, but it's like, some guys, they just go really, really, really deep into it, where I'm just like, you don't talk to other people about this, do you?
Fun.
You know, because it's like, I mean, I had to learn because I was like the only kid that was like weird during like high school and college, but it was like, I learned how to like, you know, be empathetic and talk to other people and be more open-minded because
We've all been pretty weird forever.
yeah, I mean, like when you're
for a while, as long as I can remember.
it's like the number one thing for the arts, you know. You know, it's like all the weird kids, you know, they pretty much end up being part of the arts.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I'm curious about how you're navigating the education.
Oh, you mean like, or how do you mean?
You're in school right now, is that what I understand?
Yeah, like
Okay.
right now I'm in my like final class before I like finish my undergraduate.
Oh, that's a big deal.
Yeah, so it's exciting.
Okay. So your choices in study, how have they been reflected, I wonder, by just where you come from?
That's a good question. I mean, I think like my interest in psychology like certainly stems from being like a very mentally ill child. Like I had like severe like childhood OCD, and I felt like that kind of I don't know. I mean, I guess we're talking about feeling like weird or feeling like outcast. That was certainly like a huge part of it, like feeling I mean, nobody wants to feel horribly compelled to like do something based on their thoughts like every single second of the day. And I don't know, I guess my mental health has like kind of changed throughout the years, but I think I always had an interest in trying to understand that. Or I think psychology offers you a lot of room to like understand other people. But then at the same time, it's a fun thing to study because, I don't know, you'd like to think that scientific things are very like grounded. Psychology is like, it's so much theory, and I think there's a lot that hasn't been like discovered about the human mind, or you can say like this is a pattern or like a generalization, but like individuals are so unique. And I think like that's like inspired me like artistically too. Like even though I've had like
Unbelievable. Hey, this is Theo texting, sorry. Theo's gonna
Is the video still?
Yeah, we're recording.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's pure chaos today. Sorry about that. But yeah, please go on.
I don't know, but also having like a Bachelor of the Arts in psychology, like I had a ton of opportunity and room to like study any kind of like art that I wanted to in college as well, because I just had so many open electives. So I ended up doing like a film minor in school as well.
Cool.
I don't know. I think my like most interesting class was I took like experimental art and video.
Mm-hmm.
And then
that was my favorite class. Too.
Yeah. Oh, did you make any like
cool.
projects?
Yeah. What's school that?
DePaul.
I went to DePaul.
Oh, cool.
Was it with
Was it Yen?
No, it was not Ian. It was I mean, like my experimental art. So he was a cool guy. He was like you know, he was like a slim dude. You know, I don't know. At the time, he had kind of like a swoopy hair style, but like when I had to review him, the picture they gave me was like he has like a giant beard.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like saying like he probably is like some hipster guy.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah. I mean, like I know what you're talking about. You have to go to the loop for that.
Mine was actually like, do you know how There's like a couple of those art studios above like the Chicago Public Library, like on the DePaul campus, like in the Lincoln Park one.
Lincoln. Oh, that's where you have to go?
Yeah.
Oh, that one? The art building. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I mean, like, I was an art, media, and design major.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you spent a lot of time.
And my minor was animation.
Oh, cool.
So, like, I was doing the animation stuff, kind of like the more media-centric stuff down in group. And then I was doing a lot of the art-centric stuff. And I did a lot of media stuff, too, like my photography classes and all that stuff. That was in Lincoln Park.
Nice.
That's weird. Like I went to it like now I'm talking to a DePaul person.
That's great. That's a really cool coincidence. Yeah.
What made you like the experimental video class? Like?
I mean, it's pretty much like I like experimental, very like unorthodox thinking work. You know, a lot of the people that were there, we touched base on Salvador Dali. There was a guy named Kenneth Anger.
Yeah.
You know,
Kenneth Anger?
Yeah.
Right.
That's the guy that's queer, right?
Yeah, like he did fireworks, right? Is that
he
like...
did the one where it's like in like a motorcycle garage or something.
Yeah, that sounds like I think
like
I
all
know.
the guys were like wearing leather and stuff.
Yeah, that sounds very kind of
Yeah.
angry. Yeah, fireworks
Yeah, I mean,
is like I think that one was based on like he's like in love with a sailor, but there's like he's like homophobic and like punches him or something, and like I don't know. It's a really interesting video.
I really love Kenneth Anger. I don't identify as Kenneth Anger. I don't know if that's like the audience he's going for, but I mean, I love it. Also, too, like, I mean, going back to me being interested into the occult and stuff, it's like he does a lot of occult stuff. That class introduced me to one of my favorite films. It's called Holy Mountain.
Oh yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah,
That's a crazy one, huh?
Yeah, that's a really crazy one.
I haven't seen that in a really long time.
Neither have I. I would love to like rewatch that
What's the
again.
premise for the viewers' sake of Holy Mountain? It was this sort of an adventurer's story, wasn't it? But was it like a reimagining of the Jesus story, or what exactly? It's kind of a lot of different ones, isn't it?
Yeah, it was
Riffing on kind of a bunch of those stories, I think.
it's crazy.
It's very crazy. Yeah, I feel like I definitely have to rewatch it, but it definitely has those like religious like undertones, except like these like deities are very tied to like capitalistic like endeavors.
Yeah, because towards the end it was like there were all these different kinds of people, and each part was like reminiscent of like capitalism and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Like I love the one character who makes like guns that are also like functional like instruments, or like a menorah, or like random thing.
I gotta watch it again.
It's so good. Have you seen any other like Alejandro Jodorowsky movies, or just
No, I read a book while time to do a paper about Alejandro Jodorowsky. No, ironically, no.
I feel like his other films are really good too. I haven't seen like everything, but like Santa Sombra is like really
Yeah,
good.
I didn't really have time much to it.
El Topo.
Yeah, that one's
Yeah.
I think a lot of those sorts of directors just kind of, I've never been drawn to them very much. I think I was curious enough to watch it one time, but I was never a big fan, I think. I don't know why. And I feel similarly about David Lynch. I've never been drawn to this kind of stuff. I don't know why. It's like, it's almost expected that artists, it's like part of the canon. If you don't love this stuff and hold them in the highest regard, then there's so many things like that in the art world, and just of what you're expected to like. I think maybe in a larger world, even I would say Big Lebowski would be another one of those in the more mainstream ones. But not the biggest fan of that one.
Yeah. I agree with I love David Lynch movies, but I also feel like I do feel like maybe that there's just like so much to like experimental film, and I feel like it does get kind of like limited to just a few like names or like I don't know. I really love Guy Madden, and he like always gets like described as like Canadian David Lynch, which I think is like horribly unfair. Like I don't know. I feel that
That's
like
funny.
I don't know, making those
Funny.
comparisons seem so offensive. Like
I don't know anything about him. What is his name?
Guy Madden.
Guy Madden.
Yeah, he like my favorite film by him is called like My Winnipeg.
Wow.
It's like this docu-fantasia, which I think is just again a very interesting concept where he like I don't know, he's apparently telling his life story, but it's like so fantastical that it can't possibly be real. You don't really know what parts are true, what is false. Like very like inspiring and interesting. And a lot of like found footage, which I don't know, I've been experimenting with lately. I think that's fun. Or I've been obsessed with like editing.
Editing is a little bit of fun.
It is.
When I have to do too much editing for this show, it's not as much fun. But typically it's super quick for the way I design these episodes now. But yeah, when you're sort of in the woods, just with a long project like episode 5, like I had to censor some nipples, and that was like 8 hours of just clicking because of the way that I collect my footage through this mixing board. I couldn't just sort of like take that one camera and just like automatically do it. It switches, it edits already. So I didn't think ahead on that episode, and I made myself another like 8 to 10 hours of manual work like that. It was like, Jesus. That kind of editing isn't super fun.
Yeah, it doesn't sound so exciting. It sounds more
And it's such a small thing too, that it's like that. It's not cutting. It's not doing things like that. You're just putting a little mosaic blur, every few frames, and you're like, then you have to go to the next few frames, and it's set up to be random how it changes the camera also. So learning a lot from this editing on the show. It's a little bit insane.
So what made you go into psychology?
I guess like I don't know. I guess I was trying to pick something that I felt like I was never gonna get like bored of. And I feel like with psychology, like it's still like growing and changing, and and I think that's like a really fascinating thing. I also think that psychology is very like reflective of like whatever this current like social climate is as well. Like I feel like they're very interrelated to one another. I also feel like through studying psychology, like I don't know, like maybe it sounds silly, but I think like for a while I always operated under the impression that like science is like 100% truth, and that's kind of like the point of it. When like you actually look at things historically, like there's so much like confirmation bias and people like, trying to prove points in order to like forward their own like thinking when it like wasn't actually the case at all. And then we like still study these people today, like, like Freud has been like proven wrong, like very offensive in some of his theories, yet like we still are looking at it. And I think it's just because it's so like culturally significant as well. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's what got me into it.
It's made its way into so much pop culture too. As you have so much history in that field. It's just, when it's part of pop culture, it just becomes widely accepted. Mm-hmm. And so, and not questioned, I think, at all.
Yeah, which is so like dangerous, especially if you, I don't know, not saying I have like a vast knowledge of like medical history, but like, I don't know, what I have learned is like, I guess both like interesting and alarming. But I feel like it's good to be aware that like science isn't 100% like truth, and there's a lot of like weird pseudosciences that we've accepted and then like dismissed over the years as well.
It's hard to even talk about that because it's like my history is with mental health is, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and then I was also on the spectrum. I'm just on the spectrum when I was younger. And as I get older, you're around a lot of people that are misinformed or have disinformation. I mean, I groomed somebody, in the sanctuary area.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yeah.
I was rooming with some guy that literally was like saying like, yeah, he thought ADHD doesn't exist and all that stuff. And, it's just like, this was like, I think a lot of people, in my opinion, do deny that stuff out of like, they want to feel validated or they want to feel like they're strong or something, because it's like, if you have these problems, there's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
And they pretty much put that to a T, where it's more so like, if you feel this way and you're this close to me, there's it's almost like it's a tragedy or something.
Yeah, I think I understand what you mean. Like, I think that people do have a really hard time grasping the fact that, like, we're not completely in control of, like, our thoughts, or even, like, the way that our, like, you could be a very, like, mentally healthy person, like, the majority of your life, and then something happens and you're, like, changed forever. Like, the brain is so fragile and so, like, it's also so, like, adaptable too. But, like, that being said, it's like, I don't know, you could get into an accident and be, like, a completely different person the next day. Right. And, like, that's a horrifying thought. But I think a lot of people do tend to, like, try to brush away certain diagnoses, or, like, think that there's, like, an easy, like, fix for something, just because it's, like, so hard to accept that, like, your brain is really, like, in control of you, like, more than you are in control of it.
Right. It's weird. It's a weird way to put that.
Yeah.
So how do you get control back? You just have to sort of identify the problems, huh? Or the roots of the problems. It really depends on which angle you're taking.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I always think that too. Like, I find like the psychoanalysis side of, like, psychology to be interesting, but also equally, like, I don't know, like, if you're not overly conscious of the things that are affecting you, like, how much are they, I don't know if that makes sense, but, like, how much are they really weighing in on you if you aren't consciously thinking about it, or, like.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. But that being said, like, again, like, how many things are playing out in your subconscious, like, every single day that, like, you're unaware of, or, like, what, I don't know, I guess memory itself is, like, really fascinating too.
It was strange. It's strange what our brains come up with in our dreams, that they're like, the things that they put us through. It's pretty wild. I got over some serious trauma recently just because of that, because of how my brain presented it to me in a dream. So it was just like, oh, I didn't ever even consider that they might be happy and that they weren't a victim. Wow, that's totally changed my outlook. Like, I wake up and that's the way I think. Okay, thanks, brain. That was pretty unexpected, like a little miracle in my sleep.
That is so interesting.
It's so strange that, honestly, the things that can happen in your dreams is just totally out of control. That's fine. Yeah, it's not a repeatable thing, but it's really unexpected sometimes, the things that emerge from your subconscious like that.
Yeah, or, like, I think
Freudian slips.
Yeah. Or people have a bunch of, like, I don't know, like, different theories about, like, why we dream. But, like, one of them is that, like, idea that it's kind of like an extra space to, like, sort through, like, which memories are, like, important from that day and, like, which things are not. But also, like, maybe problem solving, like, aspects too. So, like, it is interesting that you bring up like coming to some kind of like resolution in your dream. Like,
Right.
I do think that like if something is bothering you and like is on your mind like all day, every day, that's bound to make it into your subconscious and your dreams. Yeah. And it's so weird how your dream self is so like different from your normal self.
I think dreams are kind of like a subconscious of what you kind of want, you know, because it's like, I mean, I've been through a lot of like death in the family.
Mm.
So it's like every time when I dream, I mean, the most dreams that have the most impact are like when like my father or my grandmother or even my grandfather is in the picture,
Mm.
you know, and usually they come in when days are supposed to be important, you know.
Okay. That's interesting.
So like,
How does that affect you?
I mean, like it
Yeah,
makes me cry.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, you know, there are just a lot of my dreams recently. It was like, what if they were alive?
Mm.
Or like weird enough, it's like, what if they never died, but it was all staged? They were somewhere else, you know. And it's like it's getting weird because as I get older, you know, I become more opinionated. Because when I'm younger, it's like whatever the adult says, you have to say yes. But now I'm like saying it's like I sometimes get scared because it's just like if my dad was around, are we going to? Will we be cool with each other? You know, like we will be because it's like my dad was a jazz drummer and a doctor, and it's kind of like I'm into fitness, and it's like, you know, I play music that's like very complex, and it's like we can kind of nerd it out, but the thing is like when it comes to a lot of things like with the idea of being a man or something like that. And then, you know, a lot of anger, you know, a lot of like,
it's a common thing in grief, isn't it?
Yeah. When my dad comes in, I'll be saying, it used to be, oh, I'm so glad you're here, to like, there are times where I'm like, where the hell were you?
Mm.
And it's like, why are you acting like it wasn't a big deal? Like I'm 27, I lost a big chunk of my life. A lot of my problems is because you weren't around.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah, that's a difficult thing. That's quite a journey you have to go through.
Yeah. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's like I still love him, you know, but it's just that I just have to say what was on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when my grandmother gets there, it's like it's always just a memory. It's more like a reminder of like, this is kind of like your comfort, you know, like when you, like every time I have a dream, like my grandmother's in the picture, I also dream about.
There's always like a little tension with when I like hold the brush, so it's nice. It's pretty fun. John?
Like that. Like I had to pretty much sell her house and her apartment, and I always had dreams about like going back there and just opening it. There were some dreams where it was like I went there, but you know the house wasn't sold, or like, you know, one like the hardest things this year was where I drove by a house and someone already like moved in. I was like,
oh man, yeah, that is a bizarre feeling. When you see something like that. I went by a childhood home a couple of years ago. We moved around a lot when I was growing up, but one of the houses that I remember the most was you know during some pretty formative years, like middle school or just before middle school, and it's just completely gone. It's just an empty lot now. It just completely the house. It was crazy. It's surreal to see that because it's so fresh in your mind when you arrive in a spot like that. It's completely changed. Yeah, like you said, there's new people living there.
yeah,
It's a surreal feeling.
yeah. I always wonder, it's like, Well, part of the also thing is there are times when I'm like saying like I think I left my Yu-Gi-Oh cards from like 2005. And I think they're in there. If you find some, here's my number. But yeah, I always have those weird dreams. It's almost like sometimes I look at it like a refuge. Like if you ever seen like movies like Mad Max or like you ever like play games like Fallout and stuff where it's like there's like the refugee place. At times it's like a lot of bad stuff can happen out in the real world. Like I even had like fantastical like dreams about like, you know, like monsters attacking, all that stuff, like, you know, virus outbreak and stuff like that. And it's like I just go to like my safe place is like that house or that area, because when I was younger there was an apartment by there and I was born and raised. And then, you know, since my parents worked a lot, I had to be at my grandparents' house a lot. And my grandmother owned that apartment. And going back to 2019, when I had to pretty much give all that away and witness like some bad tenants like really mess up the ceilings of the place. It was kind of
intentionally, or was that like just from carelessness?
kind of both.
Okay. It's always the worst.
But I mean, like at that time, it just feels like a part of you is like being destroyed in a way. Yeah. It's like, of course, I haven't gotten over it. I mean, like I said, 2019, that's like about 3 years ago.
Yeah. The way the last 3 years have gone, the way that time has passed has been different than any other time in life. It's like no other time has existed before that almost. Yeah. It's like a past life when I think about my own history. It's pretty insane. Totally new world.
Yeah, because you went to, you're saying this is like your last semester?
Yeah, so I like, my sophomore and like junior year was like mostly just like all online.
Yeah.
It was a bummer.
But you were a freshman.
Yeah, or like I think it was I was a sophomore maybe when the pandemic like started, because I had like a normal freshman year, which was good. Like I guess I'm glad my freshman and senior year got to be the normal ones, but it certainly feels strange. I feel like I don't know, especially like artistically, I feel like I got into the habit of doing like a lot of mindless, like boring, like things like during the pandemic. And I feel like I'm still trying to like dig myself out of that hole of like not being very productive.
Oh
like,
my God. Everyone wants you to be the most productive person.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
For us to be heroes, they're like, how could you not enjoy this time to do?
What do you mean?
To focus inward, it's not what's happening.
No,
I just go through a traumatic experience and it's like, I have an opportunity, like new year, new me, new decade, new everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, you're fresh, like from graduating, right? You know, it's like I graduated in 2018. It was like late 2019.
Yeah.
You're just like, you're ready to go on fire.
Yeah.
And then it's like, nah. No.
Sorry.
Like, nope.
But you like those dreams, though.
Yeah, man. It's just. I mean, life does that. The good thing about it is, but then the more I think about it, it's like, I would have done this anyway, was the fact that, you know, I was talking to you that, no, I started playing music that's more guitar oriented, and I started focusing more on like my art style and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that was just because of like age and prestige. It was like, okay, I'm like in my 20s, and again, I'm in like my older 20s, and it's like, I don't want to hop on something that's like trendy or something, you know, a lot of people do it, you know, but it's kind of like, I want to plant the seeds of like what I really want out of life. And then you learn this like things take longer than just like there's a ticking time bomb. Like, oh man, you gotta get all your stuff together before 25. Remember, Kurt Cobain died at 27. Jimi Hendrix died at 27. Amy Winehouse died at 27. And then it's like, yeah, but...
You're 28, did you say?
No, I'm 27.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, but...
Better get it together. Oh my God. Yeah, I remember that pressure. I'm 37.
Yeah.
And there was always that kind of that everyone's got their theories about these years,
Yeah.
It's not so meaningful, I think.
And then I think the thing was like most people, they either plant the seeds, all the best ones are like a lot plant the seeds now.
Mm-hmm.
They start planting the seeds, or like they start going to like, I'll say a good example is like Metallica, they were really on their stuff in their like late 20s.
Yeah.
Early 30s. Then you look at artists like H.R. Giger, like his work was like 30s and 40s, but I think
Sure.
age doesn't really matter.
Not in this profession. Well, it does where it matters. I mean, depends on what you're doing.
If you want to be on Kids Pop, yeah.
There you go.
But I mean, like, who wants to be on Kids Pop?
I want to be in kids though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many creative professionals in history have sort of had major realizations about life and came to their conclusions over many years. Like Leonard Cohen is one of the historical greats who sort of, I don't think he really had his presence until he was an older man, and
33.
that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, I'm looking at that through
that's
pretty,
really cool.
pretty self-involved lens, but I think that's a nice story, and it's also a little bit more human than the story that if you don't make it by a certain age, then then you failed in some way. It's like you can't compare people's lives in that way. It's a little like more than a little bit too simplified. I think that everyone's got such a crazy different story, such a crazy different outlook on life because of the situations they found themselves in, the things they've had to get over, their personal struggles that educate and inform their work. It's like, how you couldn't possibly have the same kind of and level of development at some arbitrary age. It's like this is a lifetime journey, I think.
Then you find out that like that age, that like the age younger than me was like kind of stupid, because it's like I look at
everyone thinks
like
that.
I looked at like 25-year-olds and I'm like, really? Like, or like, don't get me started with early 20-year-olds.
Oh no.
like I mean, like, and we all know like 18-year-olds,
Yeah, I always think that's very like jarring. Like, or at least like, I don't know, like I feel like when I went into college as an 18-year-old, you think like you're so like cool and like you're ready for all this stuff. And then it's like as like a 22-year-old, like I could never see myself like in like a very, I don't know, like I feel like the way that I was when I was 18 to like 22 is just such like still feel so horribly immature as a person, but still so different than 18.
I mean, y'all still immature, and it's like there is a notion saying that like we're kind of younger now than back then. Because have you ever seen pictures of like people our age in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s or 80s?
I guess I've never really like paid attention to it.
They look older.
Yeah,
they can be younger. Like, I mean, like you can look at guys in the 70s, the stoner rock guys, they have the big beards and stuff, and it's like there's a good chance that they're probably like 26, and I'm like, you look 62. I mean, like I feel like they had more of a stern, mature outlook of things. Like if you watch like old interviews, they speak better. Like now it's like we're pretty much 100% casual. But then it's like, if you listen to like people back in the day, like 50s, 60s, they feel like, oh man, it's like they're speaking in cursive or like they're speaking in MLA format.
It is funny. I mean, I still meet people like that. I have friends who are like that, and when I hang out with them, I feel like there's some kind of stage play going on.
Yeah.
It doesn't make much. It doesn't make for much candid conversation, the candor is like there's some layer between how much I feel I can share with someone who's speaking that way. I feel like this is some level of performance involved, where I could potentially perform badly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an admirable way to be. I'll say that. It's also profoundly alienating in this time period, in this, just in this culture, in this society. So that's the consequence of that.
I feel like especially in a college setting, like I can relate to that. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like academic conversation, of course, can be like interesting, but when it reaches a certain point of like using your knowledge as like kind of a way to be above someone, then it starts to become like less fun. Like not like like sharing knowledge should be like a pleasant experience, not one that makes you feel like an idiot for not like already knowing what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It could be like a circle jerk.
But what did you
A circle jerk.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Where you just have two people who are going off about like something that realistically seems very like irrelevant, or like it's like it's so important in this like moment, but it has something to do with like something very internal, and it's not actually about this conversation at all.
People like sounding smart.
Yeah,
and it's like one of the few areas in life where you can sound smart and like you can get validation for doing that, positive affirmation for sounding smart. Sometimes there are some places where I wish it was like that. I wish Twitter was like that sometimes.
Yeah.
But no.
Well, you just wait. I think that technological advancement will make it so that we don't have to speak maybe nearly as often. We can run our communications through some kind of filter. Is that crazy? Yeah, it's a little crazy. No, that's so crazy. But
no, that's an interesting thought, though, especially.
I mean, we can do that already, just via email. It's not like it's like there's already a filter there, but how do you in real time? What's that filter going to be like? Is it
that's a very interesting thought.
Yeah,
like,
I wonder how do you delay that?
Yeah.
That process, like you can delay a text by waiting a few minutes and deleting it. Can you do that with your thoughts? How do you do that?
Like control, like there's like you have a conversation and like in that moment, like your like atmospherical computer it's like time set still. That like all your actions are in that time.
Yeah.
So like you can like control Z. So if you say something stupid with somebody that you just started a date with and say I love you, and then it's like, oh shit, control Z. But it's like time moves forward, but between you and them, like your brain's perception is like kind of rewired in real time. So it's kind of like it's like I kind of said it's like Alzheimer's on command.
Yeah, I'm curious about this. It seems like I listened to the Tim Ferriss podcast. I said podcast like Elon Musk does. I said podcast, which is like the slightest movement in my mouth. But No, I was listening to I was listening to him recently, and I found them talking about studies where we're trying to control a perception of time, and we're trying to control this way that we're able to perceive time as passing by more quickly. Like, for instance, a really good application of that would be while we were at a day job, that, and then when we get home from that day job, using this same kind of research to figure out how we can extend the perception of time so that we have more time in the moment to make decisions and to enjoy the things that we love doing, and how that kind of perception of time could change. And that seems like a really cool avenue of study for the future.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious if that's going to be something that people really put a lot of money into. I hope so, because that would be a cool future.
Absolutely, yeah. It is kind of interesting how, like, I don't know, like, your boring, like, day job seems to, like, even if I'm there for 5 hours, it feels like I'm there for 10, and then, like, the second you get home and, like, start to do something you enjoy, it's like, I've already run out of time.
Yeah.
So, like, that would be super fascinating.
And that's just perception based. So it's like, if we're able to do something that hopefully isn't taking a pill, then what could we do to make that happen? To make that time pass differently in our perception? It's like meditation might be a way to get to a place like that a little easier, where we process information differently because we're prepared for it. And I think that there's an interesting thing that happens when let's say I drop something, and because of its value, I know its value inherently. I reach for it in this effortless way, and I catch it before it hits the floor. Other times I might drop something that's meaningless and it will hit the floor. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's this kind of way that you look at things and you look at experiences where there's a big question of, why does it seem like I can so astutely approach that task and make the connection so much easier and effortlessly, and something else might be, I don't know, handled completely differently? Is that my state of mind? Probably. So if you're meditating more often, if you're more in control of your impulses, are you going to experience time differently? There's this fight or flight response going on too, where you might respond differently when your life is in danger and you're in some kind of shock, and your emotions might get shut off so that you can deal with the task at hand. Like if you're bleeding out or something like that, you're not suddenly emotional. It's like suddenly the sight of blood doesn't make you sick anymore. This is life or death. Mm-hmm. So it's there's such a big question mark around that for me. How could you get to the place where you can control that in a more predictable way?
Yeah,
that would be cool.
That would help a lot of anxiety, because a lot of people's perception, speaking for me, it's like there are some things that can be so small, but can lead to so much anxiety. But then also too, it's valid because it's like, let's say, something as small as like, going to the bus station. Mm-hmm. And then it's like just sitting down and no one's around. It's like my anxiety is like, am I opening myself to get jumped because I have gotten held up at gunpoint at a bus station on a Sunday in the morning in the summer. Okay, that kind of less intensified it because it's Chicago, it's a Sunday.
Sure, Sunday morning, somebody was out all night maybe.
No, it was just some kid.
Okay.
But I mean, it can really, I think that perception where we can control our emotions, I mean, like, the thing is, I believe that our emotions kind of cultivate more.
Mhm.
You know, it's like if we have the option to always, like, control on the limb, like, oh, I know this is, like, not a problem, so I'm not going to really learn from it, or I'm not really going to try to cultivate how much I get through this problem that makes me sad. You know, your emotions is kind of like delaying the maturity of your emotions naturally.
What do you mean?
What I mean is that, like, in time, you know, when you're older, or there are some things that, like, that can, like, really affect you.
Mhm.
And then, but over time and with age and with more experience, it won't affect you. You know, the thing is, like, when you were talking about this instantaneous emotional change,
Mhm.
that can pretty much affect how someone can process an emotion. And it will kind of hurt the person actually learning how to work it out. They're going to find solutions to it.
If these situations require more measured approaches, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the consequence of any kind of advancement, right? It's like something gets swept under the rug.
Yeah. Yeah, it is like sweeping under the rug, because when you sweep under the rug too much, you have a tendency to explode.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I like have all these tattoos, because in my life I swept so much emotional trauma under the rug, and then
Mm-hmm.
I had to explode.
Yeah.
And you know, that led to harming myself, and sadly I wasn't around a lot of other people, but it's just that, like, now you're just like saying, like, I have to cover all this up and get through this.
It's interesting that you look at it that way. I feel similarly.
Yeah.
That these were, to me, today, clearly instances of self-injury. And to someone else, they might be decorations. But to me, I recognize clearly this is self-injury all over the place. I don't have like scars all over my arms or something like that. I have tattoos. Do you know what I mean? Like it keeps you from experiencing life in a certain realm across the world. I think that there is a predisposition people have to people who are heavily tattooed, and there is that in this society, in this culture, in America. That society is definitely more pronounced in other cultures, even. So it's like that severely limits my ability to experience certain things in the world. I might be perceived more as a threat, or I might be perceived just differently. So I think that this is the way that I've looked at it. I don't know. That's not necessarily a dig at the industry or something like that. It's people have different reasons for doing these things.
Yeah, I feel like
I'm trying to look at them objectively and see what are the actual real world consequences for having these tattoos. You know, and I try to look at it objectively, and not be too myopic about my thought.
I mean, yeah, your tattoos, I mean, it's not.
They're pretty harmless for the most part.
Yeah, they're very harmless. I mean, you already have a Louis Vuitton, and it's
Right.
like, if you want to be around a bunch of yuppies, it's like, oh, you like the edgy, artsy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah.
you know, and is that Grateful Dead?
Where?
Yeah, on the bicep.
No, this is a guy with a paper bag over his head hanging himself.
Oh, that's cool. That's even
I
better.
don't think that's cool anymore.
Oh my god.
I thought it was cool before. I thought it was funny, and it was an impulsive decision when my friend and I were hanging out in Wicker Park, in the park itself. I hadn't seen him in years. We grew up together, and he said, "Hey, how about you draw a tattoo design for both of us, and we'll go get it."
No.
So I drew this and I thought, this is funny. And he's like, how about, I don't want that, but I'll get it for you. And could you draw it for me, but like as a skeleton? I'm like, all right. So he got the skeleton hanging itself. I got the little unhappy man hanging himself.
That's not good. Most tattoos.
It's funny in a lot of ways, but I don't like the way it makes me feel when I'm around children and I have this tattoo visible.
Oh, yeah.
And things like that are like, this dramatically affects the way that I have to think and live my life.
Yeah. Or like I mainly don't. I want to not care, but when I'm around like older people or like holidays are coming up and like your grandparents are going to be there.
Yeah.
My other grandma, or like family members, they don't really understand tattoos. It's a different generation. Tattoos were seen more as like if you're a part of a freak show or you're like a criminal.
Sailor.
Nowadays tattoos are like, it's like an extension. They can be an extension of who you are. Like, I was going to say that tattoos are somewhat of a way, it's like your body's a canvas and getting tattoos is like your way of doing that,
Yeah.
I feel like I've never explored, I feel like I've explored that concept of I don't know, using my appearance as a way to I don't know, maybe deal with deeper stuff that was going on. I'm not a heavily tattooed person. I only have one tattoo and
just one.
So jealous.
Just one, and it was very silly.
I'm very jealous. Yeah. But go on.
I don't know. Yeah, I think for example, I don't know. I feel like I've always been a very insecure person. I wish I wasn't so vain or didn't care about appearance so much, but I definitely do. And I think I don't know, one of the ways that I tried to deal with that was okay, if I can present myself in the most ugly, unappealing way and have the most ridiculous way of presenting myself, if I'm still an approachable person, what does that say about me?
Right.
And honestly, I thought it was a really fun thing to do for the most part. But then now that I've kind of returned back to I don't know, I feel I have been dressing pretty normal or and now it's kind of
refreshing in my experience. When you go to the extreme like that, I relate with that. I had a period where I started dressing very conservatively, and it was just okay, wow, I feel somehow more invisible, more free. It was a really cool feeling.
That's interesting. I don't know. Maybe I just want to be a spectacle. I feel I don't like feeling invisible. Or yeah, I don't know. I guess
I understand that.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish it was refreshing. I feel in some ways it's refreshing to not feel so tied to having to keep up with a particular style. That part's refreshing, or to kind of feel a little bit better about the way that I naturally just am.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I don't know. I feel whenever I do gain a sense of looking or feeling normal, it's is that the most fair representation of me? Or when someone interacts with me, are they? I feel they're getting an impression of me that is not accurate.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I just.
They're in disguise.
Yeah. Or if, especially if I don't know, if you're just very average and kind of unassuming as a person, I feel sometimes people will open up to me, or I can tell what assumptions they're making of me based on my looks. And I feel that has changed over the course of the different looks that I've had over the years, what people think is appropriate to say to me, or how to interact with me. So I mean, I guess that's fun. You can kind of live the life of a different person if you like put on a different face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a time. It's just more desire. You know, at times it's like, you know, during COVID, I had to play a lot of video games and a lot of Grand Theft Auto, and you had to make your own character. And what pissed me off is like, why am I doing this? I could do this outside. And it's like, life is precious and life is short. So why hide yourself? You know, I remember a dream. It was the weirdest dream when I was like 17. There was this vocalist who just passed away named Mitch Lucker. And he just looked at me dead straight, and it was like, I was going through a lot of like self-esteem issues. Well, no shit, you know, like in high school, bro.
Yeah.
But you know, he was like telling me why he's like took the shirt off, and it's like, why are you hiding yourself? You know, and I was like, that pretty much stuck with me. It's like, I'm not going to take my shirt off right now, but it's like, yeah, why are you hiding yourself? Why can't you become the person you are? You know, why does this ounce of like, oh, I can be who I am, just be in say a video game or like, you know, during Halloween? You know, it's like, once you understand the world, kind of, but you never really understand the world, you know, you will say, it's like, how can I take who I am and put it in this environment? Like, like I won't be wearing jeans. I won't be wearing black jeans at a funeral, but it's like, how can I still be myself? Like, I wouldn't be wearing these shoes at like when I'm like working at a production gig, you know. It's just like, you find out who you are as a person, and it's just different strokes and different folks, I guess, you know. Like, you find out that you kind of don't really want to look super edgy. You find out you want to be edgy, you know. Because it's like, going back to tattooing, it's like, I haven't gotten a recent tattoo because, you know, you gotta budget it, then you gotta plan it, and then you have to look at timing, and you're like, oh man, it's been like 3 months since I really looked for a new tattoo, you know. And then also too, the idea that it's going to be on your body forever. And, you know, one thing that messes with you is that, like, your impression to a person, you can never control how they look at you, but it's like, for a moment, might be the only time they'll see you. So, you know, that's a good way to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think that the way that we present ourselves and fashion generally is a language. I think that it communicates very clear things sometimes. And I remember, and I grew up, you know, starting in high school, I guess I started to experiment with fashion, what I could communicate to people with my clothing. And I went goth, I went really dark, and I was that way for years. And it was just this look of this, I want to push everyone away at all times. I want people to be afraid of me, and I want that to be my protective layer. That's my armor. And the life you live during a period like that is just sort of this intense alienation, this intense feeling of superiority, these delusions of superiority I felt. And it was like it was a crazy thing that took a long time to grow out of, that I was so stuck in that mentality because it was so protective that it was like walking past a stranger on the street who feels the freedom in that moment to say something to you about your appearance and call you a freak, or say something to you about something you're wearing. Just total stranger. It's like it's almost better than a compliment because it's affirming what you want to believe about the world that you just provoked out of a total stranger with the language that you've put on that morning. It's like, that's a crazy reality. I'm in a place now, I think, with my style where I still like the provocative aspect in some way, and I like it to be a little bit
less
more universal. I don't like it to be so
like I hate you.
almost violent as the goth was. Like it really felt that way. It was like you walk around, you want people to think you hate them. Yeah, exactly. Like that was crazy that I was like that for so long. And feeling like the world was against me. It was like, geez, what the hell am I thinking? This is crazy.
It's so basic. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's just this stage of development that you go through if you're from whatever background I was from. So it was like, a lot of people can make the same fashion choices and have totally different experiences and motivations.
that's why I was about to say that, because like back in, say, 2017, 2018, alternative fashion was a bit more like in vogue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like remember, like all the ripped up, everybody was wearing like a Metallica shirt.
Yeah.
You know, everyone was wearing ripped clothing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I was wearing that stuff because it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was like, in some ways it would be attractive to a person that's like-minded.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just like then you start seeing your auntie wear exactly what you were wearing when you went to go see, like, I don't know, doing your escape plan or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, whoa, this is not a thing no more. This is just, and then that teaches you is like, wait a minute, this is pretty much your image, like how you want to image yourself. You know, it's not like, it's no scene, there's no like, all that's meaningless because no one's going to, who knows about this? Like, you know, when people get pissed off at t-shirts, like, oh, I just thought it was a cool shirt. You know, no one really knows about it, like, because no one's going to look like for an explanation. If it looks good, they're going to rock it regardless. You know, so, you know, it's like you could be as goth as you want, but it's like, you think the other person's going to think that? Like, oh man, you're scaring me.
I mean, those were my motivations. I was protecting myself.
Did you have like the makeup and stuff?
Yeah. I think I wore women's clothes only for 2 years in my early 20s, and it was like, I've experimented so much in life that it's like, you never know looking at me today. I don't like having to present that information to communities when I walk through a doorway. That's a strange feeling today, where I almost have to like show up with a resume because I don't look the same as I used to look, or I don't look as extreme as I used to look.
Yeah, I think like,
but I think that you couldn't expect someone to know that anyway. So that's just a personal thing. Like, just a pet peeve. It's not a real gripe. I mean, no one could know anything about a stranger just by looking at them.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like presentation is like so, I don't know, obviously so tied to like your sense of identity, but I don't know, I feel like identity is something that I struggle with generally too. Like it's hard for me to relate to like, I don't know, like previous like versions of myself, or like, I don't know, like, I guess there are some things that, like, stay, like, consistent throughout my life. But, like, for the most part, like, I really do feel like, I don't know, there's just different, like, eras or, like, seasons of your life. And you kind of, like, grow detached from, like, these old versions of yourself. And, like, maybe appearance kind of helps with that, too. Like, if you don't even recognize the person from the past, like, it's hard to feel attached to them anymore.
Yeah.
But I feel like,
yeah.
or when people like cut their hair after something like huge happens, like I don't know. I feel like there's a lot to that. Like if you don't recognize yourself, you can start over somehow.
I think that's a helpful visual aid for yourself. Yeah, for your own behavior modification. Yeah, for sure. We could probably take a break. What time is it? 1:30. Yeah, we could take a break for a few minutes just to have some time off camera and chill and have some snacks if you guys want to.
Sounds good.
Okay. Usually we take it a little sooner, but I think we were pretty engaged and just enjoying the conversation.
I was like, oh no. And then another thing, there's this thing that really gets to me. I'm like, oh man, am I talking too much? Am I getting in the way? Because
Definitely not.
I really, it's kind of like I analyze things while it's happening.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shoot. And I'm also thinking like this is gonna be on YouTube. And it's like, oh man, that guy in the black shirt, the guy wearing all black, he's trying to take the spotlight. He's talking too much.
Not at all.
No,
We're all definitely passing it around.
Yeah.
So with that note, go spotlight your damn self. All right. And there's so much pressure to be entertaining. I just really want everyone to know that nobody matters.
Nobody matters.
So what were we talking about in the break? We were talking a little bit
Paranoid.
about paranoia. That's a common thread for me in my life.
I have to agree.
Yeah, you were talking about like I had to take a break from looking at that stuff, but back in
The news, yeah.
if you met me in 2016, 2017, I was paranoid as fucking shit at everything. Like, and not even that. I mean, like, I did the worst thing anybody can do. I Googled my symptoms.
Yeah, that's one.
And I was living in
Way to the bottom.
Googling your symptoms, and I was close to campus, but I had no windows in my apartment. So I was just like, man, the one time that made me say, okay, I'm gonna stop was when I Googled my symptoms. I said, like, oh yeah, I have a sore throat, and then they said I had Ebola, and I was like, yeah, I'm done.
That was definitely, was it Ebola?
No.
Oh, crazy. Weird.
But yeah, I mean, I was wearing like scarves and shit during like if it was sunny, I was like, oh, I don't want mine to be in front of the sun. It's like, but you need more sun because you're black.
Wait, can you explain that? That's the thing I don't know anything about.
Well, black people, we process melanin. We need more sun.
Okay, that's crazy that I didn't know that.
And usually white people need less sun.
Maybe because of
Yeah, so it's like
the burning and but I'm always vitamin D deficient, so
vitamin D deficiency is so common.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, we don't process vitamin D as much. It's not as easy for us because since our skin is like dark, we have more melanin, and it's like sun rays doesn't really hit us most.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm well on that. This is the season for that too. How do you get vitamin D? Do you take shots or do you take pills? Do you believe the pills do anything?
Well, I definitely believe pills do something.
Okay.
I mean, it depends. You don't want a placebo pill.
Well, specifically those sorts of vitamins, I think. Do they actually do anything in your body, or do you just piss them out?
I don't know how to answer that
I
question.
know.
I did.
I don't actually know, and I suspect that most cases, multivitamins and things like that, you're not attaching to anything. I think that, if you're eating foods that are rich in something, then that's going to be a lot better for you than taking a vitamin or some supplement. From what I've understood from podcasts or whatever the hell, sources that I can't cite. That seems like a lot of that is just kind of culture, like health culture. The different vitamins that people might take. So I don't know how much a vitamin D pill is really going to benefit me, or how much, or if I should be going to get B12 shots in my arm and not take a B12 pill. I don't know.
I used to work for this woman who was like, she was a life coach, but she was like super into like she had every like supplement that you could think of, and like all these like herbal like remedies, and like it was part of my job description to kind of like prepare these things for her. And like, I don't know, like I guess I haven't like really gone down that like road myself, so who am I to say about like how it makes you feel? But even though she was so meticulous about everything, like she'd still like have her charts pulled up and be like, oh, I'm low in this and this is wrong and this is wrong, and like and I don't know if that was just like her level of like perfectionism like over this thing just did not allow her to like ever reach like a state where she felt like healthy and happy. But I don't know. Yeah, I guess like she seemed relatively healthy, but not like the most happiest like person. I don't know. Like I feel like obsessing over things like that, like I don't know, probably wastes more of your mental energy than like is actually like worth it. Like I don't know how much of a difference it made in her life.
Maybe, I don't know.
Diet, what is diet like?
Well,
You say that earlier. You said that you're into fitness. You seem pretty fit. You seem pretty healthy.
yes.
So, what would you describe that would make you say that about yourself?
Well, it's kind of like this, where it's like there's, like, I'm gonna be honest. The first thing is like, it helps you look good, and it's like, I know everyone says, like, "Oh, that's amazing," and all that shit.
Superficial world we live in.
But it's like, you know what?
It's
Why the
Just
hell?
is.
Why the hell do I do ab crunches?
Mhm.
You know, but it gives you like privilege to do things that more harmful. Like there are times where I eat unhealthy, but if I had like a crazy workout that day, it's like I don't feel as like bad. But I mean, like I perform better when I'm 100% healthy all the time.
Sure.
Health performance, I don't know about boosting confidence. Well, yeah, it does boost confidence. I won't say boost the mood, because it's like earlier in the video, I was talking about like self-harm and things like that. And it was like the height of like me being really into the gym was when I was like doing that kind of behavior. And
when you were more prone to self-harming?
Yeah, this was like 2015. So it's like, everybody says like, oh, if you have a problem, just go for a run and lift some weights, bro. And it's like, no, like this is not a magic pill that's going to help you. It will help you. It will make you say, oh, I'm a stronger person, but that won't solve the problems at hand. It's like there are a lot of good-looking guys out there. I'm going to go pivot to like something that's like a lot of good-looking guys, a lot of fit guys, but they are terrible with achieving romance. And, you know, another thing too is the sad part about it is if you go online, a lot of that attracts people that are gym and fitness culture attracts like incel type people. And, you know,
Because they're combating that, because they're trying to change that situation.
I mean, also the image of like gym and fitness too is like, you know, it very goes along with what's airing.
Okay,
You know, a strong, like very muscular white, you know,
sure. Okay.
or like you know, the idea of power. You know, I'm better than the other person. Like I'm the stronger, I'm the fitter person.
Yeah.
You know, it goes a lot. It goes hand in hand with like evolutionary ideas of like and supremacy. You know,
Crazy. I wouldn't think of it like that.
well, it's not really that. It's like everybody should exercise or have a way to feel better, but you know, it kind of
But yeah, there is that. That is an aspect of that culture, probably. From a few people who I could say that I've known, just kind of in my referrals, who have questionable ideas about society or whatever.
yeah.
So there's like this sort of the strong man that Ayn Rand sort of fanatics who are trying to be the most optimal man that they can be. I see how that crossover could be uncomfortable. Definitely not the majority of gym culture, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. Then working out is fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. It's like it's one of the places where I can blast my headphones and then move around a lot. Like I mean, playing music and just like blasting it, you're in walls. When you're working out, there are no walls. Well,
What do you mean?
well, I mean, like if you like say you run outside, that's like my
Yeah, I love that.
that's my number one test of like, is this album great?
Oh,
If I can run to this stuff, it's a great album.
okay.
But I mean, like, but what makes a good one is if I can lift something to it and it's like, yeah, I'm tough. You know, like, yeah, like you listen to like some hardcore music, like something slow and heavy, and you just like, and you could be like skinny as hell.
That seems like that. That's a hand. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, but
I have to be careful what I listen to when I run, if I listen to anything, because it affects my mood so much. I feel like when I'm running, I'm so in tune with my body that I'm in this kind of like a high alert mode or high alert, kind of high stress mode. And that it puts me in this kind of, I'm hypersensitive when I'm running emotionally because of that. So if something enters my mind that bothers me, I'll become fixated on that thought, and then this kind of fight or flight mechanism is kicking in, where I feel like I'm experiencing this thought because my body is under this high level of stress, and it's used to feeling that level of stress when I'm thinking about this particular thing. So it's dangerous for me to associate traumatic thoughts with exercise. So, because then it affects my performance in the exercise. So I have to be careful what music I listen to. Can't be too lyric heavy, stuff like that. Can't be kind of like downer music ever. It has to be right. Yeah,
damn.
yeah. Oh yeah, they're a top 5 band for me for sure.
Same?
Yeah, but yeah, not when I run.
I mean, like, the thing about it is, Nine Inch Nails is like one of my top bands, but it's like, I can't really work out to them because it's like, even just like the creativity of their stuff, you just want to sit and just say like, what's going on.
That's so funny because like I mean I don't like really work out as much as I used to like a couple years ago. But when I did work out a couple years ago, I feel like I'd always pick some like experimental album that I had never heard before to listen to like while I'm on the Stairmaster for like the next like hour or whatever.
Oh, that's a good idea because it's kind of like you're in like a state of like, well, I'm not doing anything, time to just focus on something.
Or like I feel like maybe I don't necessarily enjoy like the task of like working out, so then having something like very stimulating happening that I can pay attention to that's like distracting was. But it was funny though because I'm just on like the Stairmaster listening to like Patty Waters or like some like really experimental like jazz, but it like totally works. Like I feel like the more I don't know. I guess for me, like I feel the most stimulated and most awake and most alert when I have something that's kind of like overwhelming to a certain extent, or like I don't know. I like things that are very, very like busy. So I don't know. That's interesting though. But I feel like when I did work out, I made a point of like trying to engage with like something new.
Yeah. Never, or what was it ever? Lyric heavy, or was it mostly instrumental?
Mostly, I think like at the time that I'm thinking of, it was mostly instrumental. But then like, I don't know, I guess I'm thinking about Patty Waters in particular. Like she has like some like,
I don't think I know what it is.
she is like an experimental jazz vocalist. I think like Yoko Ono was like heavily inspired by like Patty Waters. But she's like, I find her very fascinating as a vocalist because there's many songs where she's just kind of like almost like yowling, crying, kind of like there's something very like guttural about it.
Just described half the things I listen to. No,
Yeah.
70, 80% of things I listen to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it comes time to songs that are more, say, I'm more like critical when I'm not running, because running is like very active and you're just going. But when you're like doing like a weight set, you know, you gotta have the right form and stuff. That means you can't really have music that just makes you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, those are my times when I'm like listening to something that's a bit more methodical or like more critical, where I'm like, oh, this singer sucks, but the song is good. Yeah.
I feel like I like that combination, like a bad singer, but the music's like really good still.
That's like,
That's kind of yeah, I mean, punk rock and
yeah, or even like there's some like I don't know. I feel like have you ever heard like Joanna Newsom?
Ego doesn't have the greatest voice.
Yeah, like I don't know. People have like a really distinctive, like almost like I don't know. I feel like I've experienced a lot of vocalists where it's like
Annika, you know, Annika.
no.
ANIKA. It's a good one. Another example. Heavy accent, not so melodic in the singing, but something about it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. Some vocals can be so like polished to the point that it doesn't feel like very human. Like I feel like sometimes when you're bad, it just like feels so much more relatable. Or even maybe not necessarily bad, but like if a singer keeps in a take where like they very obviously have run out of breath, they're like, fuck up, there's something very nice about just keeping that in anyway.
I mean, like, it's good when you work out. Like, I like listening to, like, one of my favorite albums to listen to working out is a live album called The Link by Gojira. And it kind of like makes you feel like you're on the same page as them. It's like, oh man, the vocalist feels tired on this one. I feel tired. Or it's like, you can tell they're really pushing it. Like if you see live shows, like a lot of bands are like sweating and drenching, like drenched in tiredness. And it's like, dude, I'm like that way too, but I'm going to run like a million miles per hour anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like you can't listen to that when you're driving because then you're going to start speeding. You're going to start ending up saying, like, where's that scratch? I don't remember that being there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You had asked about the empty bottle when you first arrived.
Yeah.
How often do you see concerts there?
Used to a lot prior to COVID. I went to the Empty Bottle a lot. Now, not as common. Some of the bands going at the Empty Bottle are not like really. There's a lot of things that interest me that much at the Empty Bottle.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like, I'm pretty sure with time, it's like, thing is like time and money is more apparent. So it's like, you don't want to be just throwing away money to see a band that you don't really care for.
Yeah.
That's funny. I will go to a show even if I don't know who the person is.
I've done that a lot in life. It's definitely not something I do lately.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends on like the genre too, I guess. Like I don't know if I could see myself like going to see like some singer-songwriter that like I don't know, but I've certainly like been to a lot of like punk shows where like I've never like actually listened to this artist, but it's such a fun show that like why wouldn't I want to be here and go?
Yeah, they're fun shows.
I'm the same way with punk. A lot of times it's like more electronic based stuff, more alternative based stuff. I'm not like that when it comes to say other genres. But a lot of times when I go to a show, it's either like I really like their stuff, or it's like, oh, this is something that's interesting to see.
Yeah.
Like I just found out about this band, but I listened to their discography like the day of, and I was like, I really dug in. I bought a ticket because it's like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Or like my friend was there. Like when I went to the punk show, like the hardcore show back in like Friday, it was like because I was friends with the people there, and next thing you know, I started seeing multiple people that I hung out with, multiple friends, and it's like, oh man, it's kind of like can be like summer camp at times, because when you do music, when you make music, like when you're playing this stuff, the smartest thing to do is to be in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like being in the scene, that's what's so good about playing punk and metal. It's like you're in it by being involved into it. And not only you're playing it, but also too, you're in it, you're talking with bands, your friends are in it, and it's just, you just have to go to it even if you don't know, like, the people there.
Yeah.
But then that's, like, a potential, like, you can meet a member, like, if, like, your bass player quits. Oh, I know this guy just went to a show, and it's, like, it helps you be more active, It's, like,
Definitely.
Instead of just, like, sitting around, you have something to do, where it's, like, more, like, normal people. It's like they can go to a club or they'll go out shopping, or it's like this is the thing that I can do that gets me out the house, because when you're in the process of creation, you don't want to leave the house. Like I work on stuff, whether it was visual or musical, I'm like, oh, I forgot. Oh, did I forget to go outside again? It's been 3 days.
Yeah.
So Cassidy, you said that you make music also.
Mm-hmm.
Could you start with?
So I like my friend who's been my friend for like over like a decade now. Like we started like
I've friends like that too.
yeah, we started a band like when we were like 16. Like kind of started out as just being like the majority of it was just like him sampling things. And then it kind of like evolved over the years, and I feel like, you know, I had like a very minimal part at first, and then like I kind of started to have more of a say in like the lyrics or like concepts of what we were doing. And we haven't like released an album in a while, but we're like kind of in the midst of trying to do something again. And like right now we're experimenting with like making these. The last song that we made, it was like a really noisy instrumental, and then I'm telling this like childhood like story over it, like a spoken word kind of poem. So like I don't know, I guess like in my experience with music, it's more been like an outlet for my like writing, but I do like being a vocalist. Like I think there's something interesting about the voice as like an instrument and its like capabilities, and trying to find like, I don't know, it's like realistically I think any given person can sing in like, I don't know, various amounts of styles, but trying to find out like which one feels like you and your voice is like something that I still feel like I'm trying to figure out.
Makes you feel pretty being a vocalist.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, yeah. I mean, I play, you could say it's noisy, but I mean, like, I play metal. The premise of like the project that I'm working on right now is like, in 2020, I kind of really looked deep into myself, and I looked at what I liked. And it was like, I went back into like who I was as a kid. And it was like, I like Linkin Park and I like Metallica. You know, and it's like, this is before me into death metal and before going to like artsy hardcore shows and stuff like that, listening to screamo, and then black metal, and then like learning how to like play in odd time signatures. Like, what do I really like? And, you know, in some ways, I feel like I want to be like that guy where I'm like a cross between, you know, younger me that likes things that can be a bit more mainstream, but then also utilize elements of like the real stuff, you know, the real cult things, but make it seem like, oh man, if like younger me listened to this, he'd be stoked. You know.
That's interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I maybe in some ways like don't identify with like music I listened to when I was younger, but then at the same time, like as a vocalist, I feel like, you know, there's certainly stuff that like I grew up listening to that I think had an influence on like the way I like chose to sing. I don't know. Do you feel like your vocals were kind of like influenced by anyone else, or like do you think like yeah?
Hell yeah. I mean, like,
do you feel like it kind of like do you sometimes ask yourself the question of like, oh, like is it this person coming through or is it like me? Like I feel like sometimes I get stuck in that. It's like, oh, I really like this vocalist and I'd love to sound like them, but then it's like, is that what I sound like? I don't know.
When I was younger, when I first started to have like, you know, I do gutturals, I do scream, I do harsh vocals. When I was younger and I did like mid type stuff, I always felt like, oh, I sound like Randy Blythe from Lamb of God. But as time went on and I started being around people, like I hung out with people like Greg Puciato of Dillinger Escape Plan. Hell, I even hung out with Ollie Sykes to Bring Me to Horizon. You know, and you know, you're always around these people, and it was like, that's just my voice. And I started to learn how to use my voice, so that's coming from a place of like, okay, this is metal, this is what I gotta do to like, this is how I feel.
Yeah.
And, you know, going back to inspiration, I mean, after that, since like 2015, I started to want to sing more. And it was
Jane
like,
Seymour?
No, sing more. Sing more. So it was like, bands like, my favorite vocalist at the time, who I still look up to is Corey Taylor of Slipknot. He has a fantastic cleans and fantastic screams. Yeah, it's like I like the tonality because it's not like whiny. You know, it's still very hard when he sings. You know, it's like I don't get that. Like I love My Chemical Romance, Jared Way, but then there's like I don't want to sound like that. You know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's all it's like my phrasing nowadays. Like it's very Deftones-esque because sometimes it's like I do a vocal. It's like how do I make this sound horny? So what I do, I listen to Deftones and I have those long like things. And then that holds back to like on my mother's side, she was really into R&B.
Yeah.
And so it's like a lot of that vocal style is from like people like Sade, Seal. And it's like I'm channeled to that and that kind of is like an equilibrium. Because you're this harsh guy. Yet it's like you go into that, you delve deep into your emotions. And then you find out it's like, am I really angry or am I just, or do I just really want to get laid?
Oh, that is a good note to end this on. I feel like I could. We could, yeah. That's quotable. I really am wrapping up this painting. I think it's finished.
Awesome.
I should ask that question to everyone. Like, are you really angry? And especially these punk bands that say they are like politically charged. Like, are you really angry, or do you just want to, or do you just want to fuck the girl that is like really politically charged? I wouldn't say feminist because that's like 2017. You know that Me Too era shit is over now. It's all about Black Lives Matter now. Oh god, if we got to that talk,
Glad we didn't.
oh my god.
I think that's a hotbed right there.
Yeah.
I think everybody will get there one day. I'm not sure enough for that.
Yeah, I was worried too one day. It was like I was watching. You were talking about like, oh, I had to censor out a nipple, and I was like, is this going to be that? Is this going to be what I thought it was going to be? Where I was like, oh no, there's going to be some weird sexual shit in the end of this.
No.
Oh my gosh, that was like, I was trying to explain to my friend like what I was doing, and I was like, oh, remember when I did like figure modeling? Like, oh, I was asked to go on the show, and then like my friend was totally under the impression that like I was just gonna have a conversation with a stranger naked while you painted us.
People,
It'd be a different show. I mean,
Yeah, it would be a different show.
It might be more successful. We did do the one topless episode in episode 5, but that was for a purpose. That was for a reason. That we were just kind of all kind of agreed to doing that. And then that was the only time that I'm going to do that. That's not the point of the show.
Yeah.
So that was for a reason, for conversation, not with the viewers, but with the guests. So
things
I think that I don't anticipate more of that happening in the future.
Yeah.
Unless, well, I mean, it doesn't bother me. I can paint people in any condition, obviously. Yeah, we've worked together. But I think, yeah, not everyone would be comfortable with that. That's for sure. You have to really curate those episodes.
I feel like that would be like an interesting like filter to put on yourself though, like or it'd certainly like affect the way that I feel like I would, you know, maybe present myself or act or like whatever. It is interesting if you're going to be like that vulnerable.
On that episode, it didn't drive the conversation even a bit. It didn't move the needle.
Huh.
Like it didn't matter. It was awesome. It was perfect. They were the perfect guests to do that episode. It was like number 5, episode 5. It was pretty good. With Theo actually, who texted earlier when my phone was going off.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because when you said that about, was your friend also at the prom?
No.
No, because I remember it was for photography, and it was like, oh, it was when I was doing the video.
Mhm.
It was like, oh, I need a model, and I was talking to like these girls that were like, I think they were classmates, where it's like we could see each other a lot.
Mhm.
I literally was like, they think I'm asking them to do porn. But then it's like I explained to them because it was like I wanted to make it seem like a surgery film.
People really take.
And then people were like, "Oh, you want me to be like a nurse and stuff?" And I'm like, "I'm not trying to get you."
Yeah, the whole nurse thing probably didn't help your case.
You know, I want you in this film. I don't want to have relations. I want you to actually try to kill me. This one.
Sorry. You know what? When you were telling that bit of the story, I was able to paint your hand, which was up like this for 1 minute. And I had waited until that moment for you to put it back up for me to paint it, but I left it painted in.
Yeah.
So that was a good moment of chance. But now I think that it is done.
Sweet. +1 for human artists. If you know what I mean.
I know, the AI, yeah.
Yeah, the whole
I'll always have one up on the AI for this.
Took me.
This is a show that is that's not affected by that.
Yeah, it's
the
kind of,
humans are necessary here.
Yes.
yeah, it's kind of like ad nauseum. Now it's like I've gotten to the point where I'm like saying, nah, it's not. It's like it can be a tool for us to work at it, but then it's like I've been drawing and using references and drawing over bases for so long. Why do I need to use this?
Well, I mean, I think this is going to be more so used by corporations like Disney to save dollars by not hiring talent. And I think that's where the threat comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the number one person who's going to want to use stuff like this. Not people putting selfies up on Facebook.
But then,
We're just the test pilots. Honestly.
I mean, like, I don't really think, I mean, when I think of Disney, I mean, they're pretty much, like, already, like, forward thinking. So it's like, they might have already used it.
It doesn't, it's, you know, you can't change these things. I think that nature's going to run its course and that people are always going to try to go in this direction. As long as we have people will have advancement, and as long as we have people who have greed, and as long as we have people who have sort of emptiness that we try to fill with content and wealth, and all of the things are just going to go this way. And I don't think that I'm definitely not a nihilist. I really like the idea of human dignity and the sort of continuing to do this stuff, even if it's just for its own sake. Mm-hmm. But I think that, you know, there are certain inescapable realities like that you're going to have corporate interests that are going to try to ensnare us in any way that they can in order to keep our viewership, and it's just going to be that way forever. So the more we catch on, the more covert it will become. So it's like, it's not going to change. Yeah. We're not going to have some heroic figure come step in and say, no more of this. We are human beings. It's like, it's not going to happen. Yeah. So that's like how do you find your place? How do you find your way to survive in a world that's that profoundly hostile? I don't know. Find communities, find people to help. That's what I'm assuming is the answer that seems to be working for me. Yeah. Build communities that are authentic. Be sincere with people when you meet them. Be kind to strangers and be more kind than you even need to be. And it's like there's this thing that's like a slowly creeping death where the more we push each other away, the more distance we even get from ourselves and understanding ourselves and how complex we are. We aren't designed so that we're easily able to be put into a box and marketed to, or even put into a box by ourselves so that we're more easily marketed. We're just not that. So the more we isolate, the more we separate, the more we try to confine ourselves in these ways and define ourselves as these tiny things, the more we're helping that corporate interest. That's a thing that I think I believe. But I think that this painting is done. Sweet. So if you come around and take a look at it. That's good. Nice. You can step around this side if you'd like. Yeah. I'll send pictures and stuff like that also. But if you want to take pictures, it doesn't bother me. Some people don't have
in a video too.
This isn't a video.
You want to edit this part out?
Nope. No, this is the reveal. This is the end of the episodes every time. Really colorful. Big blocks of color in this one.
This is teaching me because it's like, I was like, oh, I can't do painting this fast. But now, oh.
Yeah, I can't either. But I'm becoming more and more capable of doing it each episode that I film. And I think that it's this sort of thing where if you line up a series of challenges and create parameters and limitations, then you will eventually become very good at it. Yeah. This is like an example of the limitations and restrictions being what actually causes rapid growth.
Yeah, I feel like that's interesting. Like being someone who's like completely untrained, I do like the idea of like sometimes like my limitation is just like my knowledge alone, but that's kind of like fun to work with particular like confines, because at least like you push something out and like like explorations and having like time and space.
Mm-hmm. So like this painting. During that period of like 4 or 5 years of my life, I didn't use the color blue. So I was just using white, black, ochre, and red. And, like some offshoots from there, like a brown. And that was still like kind of an ochre, just darker. And I was able to achieve all the effects in that. And that was this mentality that I had in this school of thinking when I was training to be able to paint that way. And those sorts of restrictions and limitations, they really caused me to be able to fly when I reintroduced blue to my palette. They felt like I was, all those years later, I felt like I was flying. And it's like, even if the paintings weren't good to anyone else, they were to me. And there was something that was happening there that was like a newfound freedom. It was pretty cool. So I think that that's a fun way to test your experience and your knowledge, see what you can bring out by skipping the underdrawing, and see what you can do by blocking things in. And it's a cool series of experiments that I'm able to do on this show. Do you want to see us out? Do you want to say anything to the viewers?
I guess just thank you for watching the show, and I hope you had a lovely time. I had a great time. I also I don't know, again, I really feel like the painting captures the kind of inquisitive nature of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we both look intrigued.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. It's kind of it's somewhat opposites. I don't know if you've seen. There's these memes going on about the show Wednesday.
Oh Yeah, we totally do kind of resemble that.
Like
Funny.
the dark.
Yeah.
You know, I just watched an episode of that last night. That was a funny show. I couldn't really tell that Tim Burton made it, I have to say.
Yeah.
Didn't
it's a
feel
little
like
bit-
him at all.
Mm-mm.
I feel like Tim Burton.
No.
It's like wasn't as
I feel like if anything, like, I don't know. It seems like a little bit of like, I really did enjoy the show. But also, like, I can't imagine, like, how commercialized and, like, how much say, like, other people probably had in the, like, end outcome. That doesn't seem like a fun thing to do as a director.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that I'm gonna cut it after you said what you said, probably. But,
Okay.
but whatever. But yeah, usually I say something at the end of the episode, so just like some bullshit. Just like what I said. It's something that like I'm pretending is wise. It means nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of those things where people are
Yeah, like, only, like, I feel like I do that all the time where I'm like, oh, that made a lot of sense, like, after I said it, but while I was saying it, I don't think I had any clue.
yeah. I think there's the subconscious at work. Figure it out yourself.